Okay, so for my final step in shaping, I'm going to take it over to the belt sander. If I just had a convex curve instead of concave curves, I would also be able to use the disc sander. But in this case, I need the radius on the end of the belt sander to be able to get into these concave curves. If your radius is smaller than the end of the belt sander, you'll have to use our spindle sander, which is located in the back of the shop with the Lutheri machinery. And when I'm using this, the belt is spinning around counterclockwise, so I always want to be going against the direction of the belt. So as it's spinning this way, I should be turning my piece this way. I'm also going to be really mindful of my fingers. Probably the most common injury I see in the wood shop is somebody who wasn't quite paying attention and accidentally bumped their fingers against this belt. And then just double check also that it's been set up at 90 degrees because these are adjustable belts. So you could potentially be sanding at an angle. So for the final step on shaping this piece, I have a bunch of end grain here that I want to put a curve on. Because end grain is tougher and denser, it can be a little bit iffy on the belt sander because the belt sander has such a directional movement to it. It could, if it meets something that has too much resistance, take it away from your hands and throw it. So the disc sander is a really nice alternative to that because it spins like this with a clockwise rotation. All of the movement here is downward, so it's very safe provided you don't get your fingers trapped in this crack right here. So after cutting out the profiles of my shaping and then sanding them on the belt sander and the disc sander, I've assembled my tool tote just to get a general idea of how it's going to look with that shaping, see if I want to soften the look of it at all. And I just wanted to note that when I was using the belt sander, I was trying to take very light, very controlled passes. If you push too heavily on the belt sander, particularly if you're sanding a concave curve, it's really easy to accidentally create little bumps and inconsistencies in your surface. So I was taking really light passes, trying to push with as little pressure as possible the entire time. You also might have noticed that I was using all 4 of my fingers and running them along the surface like this. And this is just kind of taking advantage of our incredible sensitivity to any kind of inconsistency with our hands. If I run with just a single finger, I only have a single point of reference, so it's quite difficult to tell if there are any high spots or low spots. If I run 2 fingers, I have 2 points of reference, so anything will kind of feel like a straight line in between. But once I add 3 or 4 fingers, I'm really giving myself a lot of information just by kind of casually touching the surfaces here. And if I do notice any bumps or inconsistencies after I've already stepped away from the belt sander, then I can correct it either with a spoke shave, a hand plane, or I like to use these sanding blocks. So these are made out of oak, which is already quite a flexible, long fibered wood. And I've just cut a whole bunch of kerfs into the side of this oak. And that way, unlike sandpaper that you're just holding with your hands, I still have some flat reference here, so I'm not going to accidentally just round out all of my surfaces. I can still run these curved sanding blocks along these surfaces and keep a nice flat here. So I'm just going to double check all of my surfaces, and I am feeling a couple bumps, and I can correct that with my sanding blocks. If I have a consistent radius curve, I can even cut a sanding block that's in the shape of that specific radius and then just run it along the inside of that radius. Another thing to note is now that I have this assembled, I can kind of give it a test. And the first thing I immediately noticed is that I'm going to have to do something to soften these edges here, because when I pick up the tote, it's fairly heavy. Those 2 90-degree corners really dig into my hands. So I think I'm probably going to opt for a 3/8 roundover bit on the router table. You can also start softening these edges with a chamfer. You can go at it by hand with a rasp or file. You can even break out an angle grinder and make something really sculptural. Just make sure that anything that you're doing that you're not familiar with, you practice on a test piece first.